All right, so now that I have all the materials assigned to my sole object here, I want to jump over to the vertices tab here. Now remember, we went ahead and selected edges here to create polygon islands. So those polygons are still separate from the rest of the group of the sole and all that. So I want to make sure that it's all one piece. So I'm going to go over to vertices here, and I'm just going to go down to merge, and I'm going to keep automatic because remember we didn't add any gaps between them, so they should merge fine. And there we go. I merged a whole bunch of vertices here. So now when I click on any one polygon here, the whole thing gets selected. So now if I need to select individual materials, I could just do that because they are their own material set. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is set up our lighting, and it's important to do that before we start texturing so that we get a better idea of what our textures are going to look like on the model. So first thing I'm going to do is make sure that the lights are visible, go to the scenes, and just check that folder that the lights are in to make sure that's visible. And I'm going to change that from a directional light to a area light, and go down to change type, area light, and I'm going to drag that down. Actually, I'm going to just set it at 0 location right now, and then I'm just going to move it off to one side. And yeah, so we get a better kind of more of an angled sort of lighting effect here. And now let's go ahead and open up a preview render viewport and see what that looks like. And yeah, I think that's pretty good. You'll notice that the background is kind of bright too, so we want to fix that. So I'll go over to my shading tab, go down to environments, click on the environment and open that up, and go to environment materials. And I'm going to change that to a constant, and we can change the color value to a kind of a gray tone, or we could go down to where it says overcast sky and set it to an overcast sky, and so that looks pretty good. They both do about the same thing, but what it's really doing is controlling the ambient lighting that is generated by the global illumination, and gives you much softer shadows and overall more realistic lighting effect. Okay, so let's go ahead and start adding materials to our model here. One thing I should point out though is that you look at the OpenGL window here, and you'll notice the colors are not really the same as what we see in the render view, and that's because what I did here is I did a GL color override. So if I uncheck that, you'll see now that the colors match the render. But this is a very handy tool for when you're trying to just identify certain materials on your object and just trying to separate them from one another. Anyway, so but that doesn't really affect what we see in the render window. So I'm going to go ahead now and start applying some materials. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add layer, and I'm going to add what they call a constant. Right here it's in processing, or you can type constant in the search menu area there, and click that on. Now immediately you see that turned black for the center spine, and why that is because here the constant is a color black. Now constant's simply a color, and it's an easy way to work with coloring your materials. Instead of adding the color here under diffuse color, I can add it here, and the advantage of that is that I can assign any effect to that color depending upon what I'm doing as a material. So in this case, I'm going to set that to kind of a bright orange. Okay, yeah, so that gave me a bright orange color. I'm going to close that, and I'm just going to right click on it, and I'm going to duplicate it, and I'm going to drag it up to the outer sole, and now the outer sole is the exact same color as well. I'm going to also add another constant to the outer sole, and it turned it to black, but this time I'm going to change its color to this sort of teal. Now I have two colors going on here, which is fine. Now what I want to do is I want to mask this teal color partially so that it part of it is orange and part of it's the teal green. But I'm going to leave the spine color alone. Okay, the first thing I need to do is go ahead and add an image, and I'm just going to open up this Clips browser, or this Clips panel right here. I'm just going to go to load an image and navigate over to where I have my images at. I'm going to choose a Mask 5 JPEG. All right, and I'm just going to drag that over to my outer sole. I'll put it on the top level so you can kind of see what it's doing right now. Okay, so that's how it's going to mask this teal image. So I'm going to sit there and I'm going to just drag it on top of that, and there it is. Now it's depending upon what you want aesthetically. For my design here, I wanted that kind of reverse. So with that image highlighted there, go to the texture layer panel there, and just click on invert, and that will invert how the mask is working, and it looks like it's behaving the way I wanted it to. Now suppose I wanted to change out my teal color here. And that's a simple, easy thing to do. I can simply click on this color bar here, brings up the color requester, and I can change that to any color I want. But suppose I wanted to change out the orange color. Well, I'd have to go over to this constant here. I'd have to select that, maybe find a color I like, something maybe bright green or some strange like that, and maybe I'd have to save that color and then go to this color here, the spine color, and change that to the same color as well. And I don't know if it saved my color pick there or not. Let's look at it. Doesn't look like it did. The little color swatch isn't really showing up there. Maybe that one's it. I don't know. So as you can see, it's kind of a hassle to actually change the color on two different constants every time I wanted to change the color of my item. So what I can do is create a link between the two constants. So what I'll do is I'll delete the one for the sole, and I'll right click on the constant in the spine and create an instance. Okay, and I'll drag that instance up to where the constant was in the outer sole. And now every time we change the color on the spine, we'll get a color shift, same color on the sole part of it. Very simple.